I get into this meeting. They said, well, we just wanted to call a meeting with you because we love the work that you do here, but we just want to ask a few questions to make sure that you're a good fit. And I kind of felt I knew where this was going to go. So, lead elder asks me, she says, are you or have you ever been involved in activities that are deemed to be homosexual? So this takes place in around 2011, 2012. I was cosplaying a Butch Queen that was playing for the Church of the Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ. And I was in between musical gigs at the time, and a family friend came to my uncle to inquire about my services because their church was looking for a musician. I had just left a church where it was a whole lot of drama. If you know anything about being a church musician, you're always going to clash with either the pastor or somebody in the choir, especially if you're presumed queer or they feel like you a part of the Rainbow Coalition. People will just do all kind of crazy shit, which is to be expected. It's a religious cult. Anyway, so family friend asked me to be the musician for the church. I said, sure. Give me your pastor's information, whom I need to talk to. So it just so happened that the person I needed to talk to was his wife's daughter, who ended up being the head minister, like the senior elder of that church. And how the hierarchy works in a lot of churches, you have the pastor, and then you have maybe like an apostolic elder. Some churches will call them a lead elder. Depends on your reformation. They may even be the chairman of the deacon board. However, this was like his right hand man, his right hand woman. So I spoke to her and she was like, hey, how are you? We're excited about having you. And we went through my resume of me playing at churches, my years of experience, and the fact that I had a degree in music as well. And she had seen some of my YouTube videos. And so we talked, go to rehearsal. We hit it off. I'm not the only musician. I was the pianist and keyboardist. And they had an older lady that was the organist. And I'm just going to call her Mother. I loved Mother dearly. Her and her daughter, I'm going to call her daughter Max. Mother and Max, they did it for me because they were kind hearted people. So I started playing at this church and started getting to know the people. They all knew that I was a pastor. And, of course, when you're in a church, you have to tell people who you're connected to in ministry and all these different things. So I finally meet the pastor when it's close time to me to play in service. And he's like an older, taller, lanky man that's about his business. And you can tell he's like a playboy preacher. Like you can tell he was a playboy back in the day. His wife was pretty, like she was gorgeous. And she had that swag about her. She had this thing about her to where she could just bring a fragrance when she walked into the room. So me being the Bush Queen that I was, I'm being myself. I'm being comfortable. I went in there. At the time, I had like an afro, and I would keep it styled. I would either get it trimmed up real nice. I would wear it curly. Sometimes I would get it braided, or either I would just cut my hair into different styles, do whatever I wanted. And it was never really an issue at any of the other churches. However, not even 2 weeks into the gig, I get called into a meeting. My first thought is, mind you, at this time, I'm performing as Brigitte Denise in different clubs at this time and doing drag shows. I hadn't yet started transitioning. I'm, living my best queer life, doing my thing, and I'm thinking, oh shit, they done found my drag videos. No. I get into this meeting. They said, well, we just wanted to call a meeting with you because we love the work that you do here, but we just want to ask a few questions to make sure that you're a good fit. And I kind of felt I knew where this was going to go. So, lead elder asks me, she says, are you or have you ever been involved in activities that are deemed to be homosexual? And I cocked my head to the side. I looked at her and I cracked the smile, probably how I'm smiling now because I was getting pissed off. And mind you, during this whole meeting, I am texting my then pastor, I'm texting my godmother and my best friend what is transpiring in this meeting. And I smiled. I was like, well, I said, to answer your question, I understand that I am very prim and proper and that I don't fit the societal mold of what a black man, well, at the time, assumed cis black male, perpetuates. And I'm okay with that. But I think it's very disrespectful of you all to ask me of my sexuality when I'm rendering you a service, which my personal life has nothing to do with this business. And no, I am not gay. And that's all I said because the truth was I wasn't gay. I was actually pansexual at the time. But that was before I had the language to describe my identity at the time. So I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off. I walk out of the meeting and mother and Max let me know. She was like, we already knew that they were going to have this meeting and we told them that we didn't think it was appropriate for them to have this meeting to ask you that. And they were letting me know they were asking if they were asking different people in the congregation, did they feel comfortable with me playing at the church? And mind you, I was a young 20 something. So I really wanted this position. I needed the money. And I was told initially that I would get paid $100 a Sunday. They paid me $100 that first Sunday. Then comes around, they tells me, oh, we paid you $100 for the first month, but um, the way we pay you is $20 a Sunday, and we're going to give that to you at the end of the month. What? I should have quit then. I should have quit then. But because of the fact that this person that asked me to come play for them was connected to my family, it was like I kind of had to play for this church and shrug it off. And I couldn't raise a whole lot of hell about it. But now that I'm a little bit older or wiser, I should have quit that church and put their asses on blast for that bullshit. Anyway, and I'm going to call this pastor Pastor Don. So I go and I play for a couple more months. All the while, I am looking for number one, another job, and I'm looking for other musical opportunities that could really fulfill me, in terms of what I wanted to do at that time for music ministry as well as for my music career. So a couple of months after this, right after Easter, going into the month of May, I'm out of town in Charlotte for a convocation that I had to preach for. And mind you, the Reformation that I was in, it was LGBT inclusive. It was LGBT oriented. It was queer ministry. So this particular pastor calls me. He says, well, I need to talk to you about something. I said, yes. I was like, what is it? He said, I need to talk to you about your YouTube channel. I was like, sure, bet, what's up? I already knew what was on my YouTube channel. And I knew it was only going to be a matter of time before this pastor asked me about some of my YouTube content. And I was already prepared for my response. And I made sure that my then pastor was in the room. I said, well, I do want to advise you, I need to have my pastor in the room because you're asking me about something of my brand, but also you're talking to me as a leader. I think it's proper that I have my leader, my pastor on the phone. He was like, no, I don't want to be on speakerphone. This is just between me and you. I was like, well, then this conversation is not going to happen and you will not see me on the next time for me to play. So he was like, well, your pastor can join. So Pastor Don tells me, he was like, I was looking at your YouTube content and I saw where you were talking about HIV and AIDS. And of course, that is, something that happens to the LGBT community. And I immediately stopped him. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. I said, where's this coming from? Where's the issue in me talking about HIV? I said, because it doesn't only affect the gay community, but it affects the heterosexual community, particularly Black women in high alarming rates. And I proceeded to educate him on what HIV is and is not, because he was apparently going on the bigoted knowledge from way back when the crisis first happened in the 70s and 80s and the 90s. And he's like, well, that's how it's predominantly spread because of DL men. I was like, no, sir. I said, you're sprouting harmful rhetoric. I said, I'm not taking down my videos. I said, I will unlist them where you can't see them. And come to find out, his main issue was because at the time, YouTube would have related videos right beside your video on, YouTube. And he saw a video where it had two men kissing, and it was a thumbnail for another video that wasn't even mine. And he was like, well, I don't think that's a good look for the church. People from the church can go to your YouTube and they'll think all kinds of things. And I said, well, sir, I've been paying there for about 4 months and no one has said anything to me yet. You already called a meeting to ask me if I was gay. I said, and I was already taken aback. Now is this? Well, he said, it's an appearance giving off. Then he brings up when I used to do this character named LaQuasia, which I stopped doing because I realized that I was, doing a caricature of Black women that was not appropriate. And this was, you know, after the fact, of course, and I had actually since quit doing the character before he even, you know, confronted me about it. So he was like, well, I saw this character LaQuasia. You're doing drag, but you're saying you're this and that. I was like, sir, that is called acting. I said, it's the same thing that you all glorify Tyler Perry for. I said, but because I realize I don't fit certain molds, it looks gay to you. I said, that's just a character that I do. So it's like, well, you need to take it down or you can't play at my church. I said, I'll unlist them. I said, but my fans and people that follow me will still be able to access them, not the general public. And he was like, well, that's fine. I knew then that it was time for me to stop playing for that church. So, not long after that, about a week or so after that, another opportunity came for me to play at another church. Cool. Bet. And this church, I actually knew the people there. I grew up around them. I had played in churches in my local town. So they knew me. I was comfortable with them. So when I get this opportunity, I immediately let her elder know, hey, I need to talk to you and the pastor. I have another opportunity to come up and I need to discuss this with you all. And I was like, because this is going to take me away from this ministry. So again, we call a meeting and lead elder, she just early irked my nerves because she was the type of church woman that she thought she was better than everybody else, and that because she was head of the praise team, she could treat people any kind of way. Because in many of the praise and worship sessions, she was just the nastiest person you ever want to meet if things didn't go her way or if certain people didn't come to rehearsal. But girl, you be late to rehearsal all the time and you have all these piss poor ass excuses, but you get upset when somebody else say something to you. Girl, make it make sense. So nevertheless, we called the meeting. She was like, oh, so are you wanting to still play here and take this other church? Because we would rather just have you here. I said, well, since you're only paying me $20 a week and $100 a month, this will be a better opportunity for me as it will meet my financial demands and it's closer to home for me. And she was like, oh. Oh, she said, well, when will be your last Sunday? I said, next Sunday will be my last Sunday. Bet. So I said, you know what? Since this is going to be my last Sunday, I'm about to gag them. So at this point, I had my afro. And since I was making a transition in music and ministry at that time, and it was getting ready to be the warmer months, I went on ahead and cut myself low and got my hair cut low and even all over. And this particular Sunday, I decided not to wear my earrings to church for some reason. And for those that know me before transition, I will always wear a pair of stud earrings to church regardless, unless I was sitting in the pulpit. Because you know how church folks fucking do about every little picky thing. They have rules for every goddamn thing. So I get to the church. Apparently, they haven't told the people that that was my last Sunday. So I cut my hair, wear me a nice new suit, looking good. Walked up in the church, sat on the piano, played through the service, and at that Sunday, that particular Sunday, we had communion, and I remember sitting there with the other musicians and getting on the organ after communion. Mother and Max knew that it was going to be my last Sunday because I had already gave them the heads up during the week. They were the only ones that knew. Let me backtrack on the earlier statement. But no one else in the church knew except for those and the pastor and lead elder. So it was announced that I was leaving the church that Sunday. And one of the ladies was like, "I'm going to miss you working here." And she was like, "But I understand you needed to leave." She's like, "Cuz I don't like how they treated you here." And once I left that ministry, I let it be known about the treatment there in my circle of ministers and with various people that were connected to the ministry. And I even had one of the women pastors for one of the sister churches tell me straight up that my flesh needed to die if I wanted to pursue God. And I looked at her and said, "Ma'am, my flesh is already dead. I just had to die to other people's opinions," and walked off because I'm like, number one, I know what you're insinuating. Ma'am, mind your business and wonder why you can't get a man, honey. And after that, I left that church. And I'm like, I'm glad I left because number one, and this is another reason why I stopped playing for churches. They do not treat their musicians right. And number two, they worry about the wrong thing. And I hate how the black church, which was once a symbol of civil rights and justice, has become the main tool for oppressing its queer and trans members, which is why I divested from Christianity. And this particular situation with them calling a meeting about my sexuality and then questioning me up about what I do outside of ministry in terms of entertainment and education, particularly about HIV, that really soured a lot for me as a musician. That soured a lot for me as a musician. And I'm glad that I stopped playing for churches because I no longer have to deal with that type of bullshit. If you've made it this far in this video, I want y'all to leave a mermaid emoji in the comment section and tell me about your experiences in church, about how people have called some outrageous meetings or outrageous things that were said to you. So y'all live, love, and be free. Smooches.